Hello everybody, it's Will here. It's October 24th. The last time I've gone through the hive was 2 weeks ago. Last week the only thing I did, and I didn't do it on camera, was I topped off the feeder and put the entrance reducer into the hive. My plan for today, I have a bunch of things planned for today. Number one, I want to go through and make sure everything's okay in the hive. I have another pollen patty here in case they need it. And the other thing I'm going to do, in addition to topping off the feeder, is I'm going to apply another mite treatment. This one is Apivar. The last treatment I did in September, beginning of September, was Formic Pro. So I'm going to apply this one. This one is a chemical treatment that you put on. The bees walk over the strips that have the chemical on it, and they spread it amongst themselves and in the hive. The chemical directly affects the mites, versus like Formic Pro and the Mite Away Quick Strips, which is also formic acid that I've used in the past. Those are actually acid vapors at concentrations just below the levels that would harm the bees, but high enough to kill the mites. Formic Pro and Mite Away, the advantage to using those is the acid fumes actually penetrate the wax cappings of the cells and kill the mites that are in the capped cells. The Apivar is different. It's a longer term treatment. Once I put it in here, it's going to stay on. The strips are going to stay in the hive for they're going to stay in the hive for 42 days. Reason why I'm treating now, again, is I lost my bees last year because I did treat with formic acid, I think in September, but I didn't do another treatment. And talking to the guy that later this year, I deal with for bees, he had the same issue, and he lost a bunch of bees as well. So he's planning on doing this exact same thing I am doing right now, treating now until part of next month for mites, and hopefully that'll get the mite load low enough that they won't be an issue for the bees throughout the winter, and they'll survive. The other thing I'm doing is trying to make sure my bees have everything they need to get through this winter as far as food and protein goes. Because I'm doing a mite treatment, I want to try and pull this corrugated board that's below the screen of the hive. I haven't cleaned this off in quite a while, as is clearly as evident here. Holy smokes. So we're going to get this cleaned off. That way, when I apply this mite treatment, I'll have a good idea of, I'll be able to pull this board and have a good idea of mite kill, because the mites will fall through the screen bottom board and onto this. Yeah, you can tell I definitely haven't had this board off in quite a while. Get this cleaned up as best as I can. Okay. And all that is basically the dirt and cappings and mites and everything that fell off the hive throughout the summer. All of that down there. So that's good enough. That'll give me an idea of what's going on. Slide this back in. Okay. All right. As you can see, I did put the entrance reducer on. I have it on the medium setting right now. Last week when I stopped by, it looked like the bees had only taken maybe a gallon of feed off of this feeder. Looks like they haven't done a whole lot with it since. So I'm going to try to get this feeder off and set to the side. Without creating a mess. There we go. I'm actually going to set this to the side. We'll set it there. Alright. So I do want to go through the box, kind of see where they are. They did pack away quite a bit of sugar syrup. So I want to see how this top box is doing. Get some of this comb off. Didn't look like they're starting to do bridge comb here. And get rid of that. Get these frames loosened up. It's about 64 right now. It was pretty cool this morning. There are some foragers working. The other day, a couple days ago, it was like 80 degrees out, and a friend of mine who owns this property sent me a video, and the bees were awfully busy. This frame is super heavy, which is good. Well, all that capped cells of nectar and syrup on both sides. That's a good sign. Let's see what this frame looks like. This is the outside. The first frame has some weight to it too. That's a great sign. Capped. I quickly looked at the second one. I didn't check for the queen. I'm going to do that now. I doubt she's here because there's nothing for her to do on this frame. Yep, no sign of her. Now, I expect the queen to have slowed down laying eggs, so I'm not expecting to see a whole bunch of brood. But I'd like to see some, and I'd like to see the queen. Okay, there's capped brood. And some open larvae. On this frame, ideally, oh, on this side too. Ideally, I'd like to see her laying more in that first box. Got some eggs. Alright, so that's a good sign. I know she's been here at least 3 days ago because I'm seeing eggs. Taking a closer look just to make sure she's not still on this frame. Don't see her. Capped brood and larva on this frame. And they got nectar going around. It's good. The capped cells we're seeing and the larvae we're seeing are going to be our winter bees. So I'm doing everything I can by feeding them, giving them pollen to fatten them up. Because they need those fat stores to survive the winter. Again, I'm looking for the queen. There she is. So I'm going to try and catch her in my queen clip here. Okay, I got the queen. See the queen in the clip here. She's much smaller now than she was earlier. I'm not sure if that's because of winter or if coming or if what's going on there. Okay, so I'm glad I saw her. I have her clipped or caught in the clip. So now that means I can kind of go through this faster because I don't have to worry about hurting her and checking the honey stores. Again, they're capping up above and on the sides here. So they still got a pretty good sized nest going. Okay, this one, very little cappings of brood and mostly nectar and syrup stores. Okay, now the last time I went through this hive, this is the better comb, the synthetic comb. All this year they had not touched it, and now they're using it to store syrup and nectar, which is good, and they're even capping it. So the queen refused to lay in it, but the workers will use it to store their honey. So I'll have to remember that. Now that kind of melted down last year, or during the summer, because of the heat. Oh, this one's heavy. Alright, that's packed. They need to dry it down some more and cap it. You can hear them kind of getting loud. That's because I have the queen caged. I'm starting to use this one for stores. That's good. And check the last one. Ordinarily, I wouldn't go through the entire box at this point, but being the time of year it is, and I'm getting ready to put treatments on, I want to see what's going on. So they recommend that you put, when I do put these treatments in, they recommend that you put them in on frames that have brood on, and they should be 2 frames apart. So frame, brood here, brood here, brood on this one, brood on this one, because this is the frame I caught the bee on. Okay, so I'm putting the box back together. And I know I've said this several times in the past, but you'll notice the bees are a little bit more defensive right now. That's because we're in the fall season and they're protecting with the food stores they have. So I'll have more bees buzzing me. Probably time to put a little smoke in. Okay. I'm going to pull this top box off. A little smoke in there. Oh, that's heavy. Very heavy. Ooh. Okay. So they really haven't done a whole lot with this pollen patty, so I don't need to add another. Although I am going to get rid of it, because see these larvae here? These are wax moth larvae, so I'm getting rid of this. And I'm not going to add another patty. Or maybe I should. I hate wasting the patties. I'm going to leave that patty. I'm not going to put another patty in for now. I didn't see a bunch of pollen stores. I'm hoping I'm seeing them down here. If not, I might have to put a patio on for the brood. Ideally, at this point, I don't want to because I saw those wax moth larvae. You'd think the number of bees I have, they'd be defending against that, but it doesn't appear to be that way right now. Okay, this frame's light. There's some nectar in it. Kind of go through this quickly. Nothing in this one. Some nectar stores going in here. A little bit of capping going on. There is some pollen there. Bee bread. So that's one frame that has a little bit on. There is still some goldenrod, a little bit going, and some asters going right now. A little bit of cap brood, and a little bit of bee bread. Some nectar. Same with this one. I'm half tempted to do a little rearranging actually. Thinking about taking the brood frames from this box and putting them in here. Because I'm not seeing any brood down here. That's what I'm going to do. That frame's empty. This frame has syrup going in it. This will be a first for me. I've never done this before. So we're going to see how it goes. That frame's empty. So what I'm going to do to encourage her to be laying in the bottom box, I'm going to put the brood frames from the middle of this box into the middle of this one. The empty frames that I'm pulling, I'm going to put on the edges of this box to encourage them to fill it with sugar syrup. So that's what we're going to do. And that should keep, hopefully that'll keep her down there laying. Okay, this frame had brood on it. This frame has brood on it. Trying to maintain the order somewhat. This frame has brood on it. Brood. You can hear this box get really loud, mainly because I'm moving frames around and the queen isn't here. Okay. Does this one have brood on it? No, that's the synthetic. How about the one on the other side of it? No, okay. So, now I have these up here. I'm going to take these empty, whoop, I don't want my tool. I'm going to take these frames that don't have anything in them that has nectar. This one has nothing in it. So I'm going to set this beside one of the brood frames here, and that'll give her instantly more room to lay down here. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So that one has an empty side. This one's completely empty. So this is going in. Okay. So I got that box squared away as far as the way I want it arranged. This could be a horrible mistake, I don't know, but it's part of beekeeping, I guess you find out. Now, since I have access to the bottom box, I'm going to go ahead and apply these mite strips. I brought some nails to hang them by. This is pretty nasty stuff, and actually now I'm thinking about it, I need to. It has some pretty wild warnings on it about it could be really harmful if you absorb it through your skin, even fatal. So I'm gonna put these actually can't really double up on these gloves. I'm going to put these chemical resistant gloves on so I can apply these strips. Hopefully the bees don't figure out how to crawl down these cuffs. While I'm doing this. Okay. Chemical resistant gloves. Have my Apivar strips here. Contains 10, I only need 4. Let's see if I can get it open. Oh, here's a tear. Okay. That didn't do much good, did it? Here we go. Alright. So here are the strips. I'm going to need 2 of these. Now this is a first for me too, I've never applied these before. I'm grabbing a nail. If you look, they have these little plastic wings that I could just jam down in the hive, but it's going to push that strip to one side, which means the bees won't be able to walk on either side of it. And that's what we want. We want them to walk on both sides of it. So we got, this is my brood area. So I'm going to put one in here. Give that a little more space so they can walk around it. There we go. Okay, we'll get another nail. and put it through. Put this one right here. A little more room. Alright, so I got my 2 strips in. What's going to happen is over time the bees are going to walk across as they're taking care of brood and everything else, and they're going to slowly spread that chemical across these frames. So what I'm going to do now is put this top box on. Get it arranged and do the same thing. Before I do that, I'm going to take the queen I'm going to release the queen. She decides to walk down in. There she goes. Go down. Okay, she's down in. Take this top box. Put it on. So now, what I want to do is these frames above the brood nest that I had just made, I want to make sure that they're mainly capped or full frames of nectar so that the queen has no room to lay up here. I don't want her laying up here anymore. Okay, so I'm going to move these to the middle. That one's pretty empty. Okay, let's start putting these other frames in here. They're empty. And hopefully what they'll start doing then is start filling these full of sugar syrup and nectar. I'm going to cut this comb off. Again, this is the first. I've never rearranged a hive quite like this before. So we'll see how it goes. I definitely want the brood chamber down below at this point. Okay. This last frame in. So hopefully this will encourage them to start putting honey up there and nectar. Gonna smoke them a little bit. Now I need to apply these other 2 treatment strips. There's no brood up here at this point, but there is it is right above the brood comb. Whew, these are hard to tear apart. There we go. Okay. Nail in this one. Put that in there. These I'm going to spread out a little bit further. Trying to get a small nail. Okay. Put this one here. Okay, so I'm done with the treatments. I'm going to close this Ziploc. I'm going to put my unused strips into this bag and seal it. Walk away from the hive. Hopefully the bees leave me alone for a second. Okay. I'm going to put my regular beekeeping gloves back on because those chemical resistant ones are awfully hot and hard to work in. Okay. Squared away. Whew. Feels much better. Okay, this one has the screws in it for the nails. I'm gonna, for now, put them in my cart and use this bag here. Put this pollen patty in. Again, I'm not putting one in there now because I saw wax moth larvae, I believe. Maybe they were hive beetle larvae. One of the two were on that pollen patty, and I don't want to feed those larvae. Okay. So next step is put the feeder back on. I think I'm going to dump a little bit of the syrup out because I brought some fresh syrup with me. Try to get this feeder cleaned up a little bit. Here's a live bee. These are dead. I haven't seen much yellow jackets or anything, so that's kind of a good sign. Okay, gonna go get my sugar syrup. Brought 1.5 gallons today, which means this is the last I had on hand, which means I'm gonna have to make another batch. This is again, this is a 2-to-1 syrup. 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. So saturated it's solidifying on the bottom. don't want to fill it any more than that. See the bees working a little bit of syrup that I put down there that had bees stuck in it. Looks like the bees had already gotten out of it. I always like to dribble some syrup up here just to get the bees interested in coming up. See them starting up now already here in the corner. Okay. All right. Put the lid back on, inner cover, and the outer cover, and that should be it. So that was interesting. I wasn't planning on rearranging frames this visit. I definitely want the queen to be concentrating on putting the brood and larva in the bottom box, and I want all the sugar stores and stuff to be, and nectar to be up in this upper box, because what happens is in the winter they'll form a cluster down here. They'll form a cluster in here and ball up, and then over winter they'll eat their way up through the syrup and end up in here. But the problem is if the queen's laying brood up here, that means that they can't store sugar there, which they'll need in the winter. So hopefully that rearranging like that fixed that issue. That's again something I wasn't anticipating on doing. Okay, one thing I do want to do is I want to check to see how level if I can see how level the hive is. It's close enough. Okay. All right. So we'll see if that worked. So there's 2 firsts for me on this for this year. Actually, a few. I've never fed as early as I have. I started feeding in September, beginning of September. I've never treated as early as I have that I remember. And this is the first time I've done a second treatment, and the first time I've used Apivar as a treatment. So those Apivar strips will stay in the hive for 42 days, and I'll come back and pull the strips and see how they're doing. Until then, I'm just gonna keep topping off the feeder, make sure that they do have fresh syrup there for when they want. I probably should have walked that syrup. Now I'm thinking about when I dumped that syrup, I should have walked it down here a little further away from the hive. Hopefully that doesn't encourage other bees in the area to come try to rob my hive. The numbers are up. I think my hive's strong enough to kind of fend off robbing bees. But I just don't want, I shouldn't have done that. So I kind of got off track there. So next week I'm going to come see if rearranging the frames and putting the queen down below did the trick. Hopefully they'll start filling the side frames on the top with syrup to prevent her from laying up there even more. I want the brood in the bottom box in the center area, and the rest to be full of honey and sugar syrup. So with all that said, everybody, I hope you have a great week, and be safe.